Hi, welcome to this week's vlog. I'm Russ, your guy in Guam. This is June the 11th, 2021. And this would now be week 7 as this vlog is getting started as a documentation of my ongoing weight loss journey. And again, as I've talked about moving forward, this vlog is probably going to continue to evolve into other things. Again, a more of a sort of a general my own personal testament of my own life journey, and for for communicating about self-improvement and those sorts of issues and topics, and other things that I'm into as a writer. But for right now, it's sort of like I started to talk about this a little bit last week, and I realized in watching the video back that I didn't quite get to make the point, so I'll make it this week. Why not? This this vlog is starting as a documentation of my personal weight loss journey, and that reminds me of, for those of you who are older and remember this, in the late 1970s, right, there was we had the United States had a hostage crisis, right? There was the U.S. embassy in Iran, and the U.S. had obviously bad relations with Iran. I don't think they're sparkling today, right? But certainly then we had, there was a sort of an uprising there in Iran. They stormed the gates, and we had for a very, very long period of time, right up until President Reagan was inaugurated. As a matter of fact, I think that was one of the big Reagan things, is like he was inaugurated, and then suddenly these hostages were on their way. They were on a plane headed back to the United States. They had been released, but there was a hostage crisis for, I don't remember how many months. I mean, it was, I don't know, somewhere, it was like all of 1979 heading into 1980. It was a huge thing that would have considered, obviously for those of you who weren't alive in those days, you wouldn't remember that. But how that relates back to the origins of this vlog is there was a very popular news program, nightly news program, that I think it's off the air now. I don't know. Is ABC's Nightline, is that still a thing? I don't watch regular television, but from the late 1970s, certainly through the early 2000s, there was a man by the name of Ted Koppel. I think it then became hosted by other people, but for most of its history, sort of like Price is Right was always Bob Barker, and for most of its incarnation, The Tonight Show was Johnny Carson. For most of the incarnation of the show called Nightline, the host was a guy named Ted Koppel, and that show began in the Iran hostage crisis. It was started as, this is our nightly coverage of that. Then at a certain point, they sort of realized that they didn't have, like there wasn't enough to say about it. So at a certain point, they realized that they had a good viewership. That there was a good model there going for a nightly, for nightly conversations about the news of the day, various topics. That Nightline, it became Nightline. It became a thing that they, was just exploring the news topics of the day. And of course, Nightline continued to, I'm sure, and they decided that certainly once the Iran crisis was over, that it would continue on as a nightly news discussion program thing. So again, that was just a sort of analogy that came to mind, and I think there's sort of something similar that is kind of like what's playing in my head for the course of this. So again, I know as I'm speaking here on June the 11th, 2021, I do not have like really regular viewers, or but this is something that I'm I might as well, be honest. This is, my stage one. At some point, hopefully down the line, people will, find me as a writer in all of my various forms, my modes. I, plan to be a regular contributor on Medium, and I'm a creative writer, and so this is another aspect of how it is that I'm doing my communication outreach and putting myself out there in the world. And aren't you all lucky that I've decided to do that? One more, as Bill, the late great comedian Bill Hicks would say, one more fevered ego. But I don't think so. I've kind of come to peace with the idea that I'm speaking to my audience, whoever you out there might be, and certainly I think when it comes to the weight loss effort and the idea of a life reclamation project, that here I am at age 50, not just taking control of my weight and my health, but that is part and parcel of a much larger, this movement into becoming a writer sort of later in life and being able to lean on a lifetime worth of experiences to help me inform my writing, both in, if I'm doing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, advice and really kind of documenting. There's a lot of changes that we're, undergoing, my wife and I, coming to Guam, embracing the sort of adventure of that, being, sort of part of that expansion and growth as people, and really just trying to embrace everything that this world and this life has to offer. And, if that sounds like a bunch of pretentious bullshit, tune out. It's not, though. It comes from the heart. Again, this is, you see, I don't edit these things in any way, and that's by design. Maybe as I go forward, I'll discover, So part of this also came from exploring the idea of getting into copywriting, which is something that I think is sort of helping me inform my thoughts and how I'm shaping what it is that I'm doing. But I've decided, really that I've got this opportunity to really build myself more personally, and again, really focus on the creative writing side, and that I think that if I'm going to get involved in marketing myself as a writer and marketing myself as a communicator, that I want it to be really coming from me to you directly and not through, filtered through, and I believe me, this is not to cast aspersions on copywriting or writing for business, or being a communicator for business. Those are very valuable functions, but I for me personally, I think it's just not my best destiny. So let's get back then to this week's update. So that's sort of laying some groundwork about what this effort, what it is, and what it's been about. Again, the weight loss is where we're starting with it. I talked last week in my week 6 video, this being week 7 of me making videos to document the weight loss on a week-by-week basis. Again, here in Guam, Friday the 11th of June. This is the 7th video in the series, and last week was the first time I actually got to talk a little bit about the program that my wife and I have invested in and that we're using to help us be a guide, if you will, through the weight loss effort, and that is we are paying for the Noom app. The Noom app, Noom. Again, at this point, and so where I started on April the 20th was at 265 pounds. I think it was 265.1. Last week, week 6 of my video series, it was actually 10 days between starting Noom and making my very first video in the series. So in that first 10 days, I had some pretty good weight loss, but now we've every week been doing it consistently, making these videos to document it. And so we went from the 265 on April the 20th, as of last week, the week 6 of the videos, I had checked in at 241.7, and I had talked a little bit about it being a challenging week last week, because the 241.7 only represented about a 0.7 according to my scale, 0.7 weight loss drop from the previous week, which was obviously therefore 242.4. So we went from 242.4 down to 241.7, and it had been a week where it felt like there were a lot more ups than downs, but there was that little bit of movement right there on that Friday morning that actually gave me as much as that 0.7, that really I'd even been, I had gone up frustratingly and had been well within my caloric budget. And that kind of brings me into my weight loss, maybe a couple of takeaways, again. So with Noom, in prior weight loss efforts, and I may have mentioned this, I think, in earlier videos, but in my prior weight loss efforts, I've gone where I just, I've had different mindsets about it. I'd like to believe I'm taking the best and healthiest approach, and even this documentation as being part of it. That I've got the best focus right now, and that Noom does contribute to that. And as I say, I'm not affiliated with Noom. I had approached them to see whether or not they were interested in my story. I didn't hear anything back, and that's fine. One way or another, it wasn't going to change whether or not I lose the weight or how much good that Noom does for me or doesn't. Whether or not my wife and I decide ultimately to drop the Noom program. Again, I'm not saying that I'm endorsing Noom at this point, or nor am I giving it any critique. I'm just sort of reporting my results and what's going on in real time, week by week at this stage. And so, maybe at the end of things, I'll have tremendous, obviously so far so good, right? I've started at 265. As of last week, I was at 241.7. Was a little disappointed because I was looking forward to hopefully hitting two significant milestones. Because hitting that 240, obviously if you do the math from 265 down to 240, that's 25 pounds. And I didn't get there. I was at 241.7. I had, again, it was a very small amount of weight loss. And then the other significant thing is to get below 240. I think, again, if you've got a significant amount of weight loss and you are tracking your weight, which you should do, it's always kind of a good psychological edge, if you will. It feels like a win when you break through into another decade, right? When we go from 260s down to the 250s, and now we're losing weight in the 240s. And I, would have hoped to not only be down to 25 pounds, but also to, be down into the 230s, right? It didn't get there last week. I'm happy to report, and I'll drum roll on this week. This morning, I weighed in at 238.4. So from the two, whatever that comes out to be, so a little more than 3 pounds this week, and it was generally a pretty good week. I had a couple of days of, a little bit of stagnation and minor upticks and but obviously, that kind of takes me back to some prior weeks. So what did we do different? Now, small plateaus are a thing, and that's one of the mindset keys that you really, if you're going to undertake a weight loss and you've got a major weight loss to do, you've got to accept that you can do everything right, you can get your exercise in, you can meet your calorie goals, and sometimes your body just goes through an adjustment period, and it's sort of figuring out how to survive, and because again, our bodies are not evolved to be obese. Our bodies are evolved over millions of years where food was scarce, and so obviously when your body senses, oh, we're in a weight loss mode, food must be hard to find right now, so we've got to sort of tighten things up. Well, that obviously works against you when you're in the 21st century and you've been eating too much of an American diet, and you're trying to reclaim your life, and so that's what I'm looking to do. So as I said last week, it was a bit of a mentally tough week. Obviously, this week was a better week. So I'm feeling great about 238 to be not just did I get below, but I'm now I've got a little bit of breathing room between me and 240. So even if I have a tiny uptick, and again, one of the great things for me with Noom is that you do the meal by meal calorie tracking. We've been very scrupulous about making sure to log the calories accurately and meal by meal. And I think that's been a giant help. That really has. So, again, with Noom, as I was about to say, is in prior weight loss efforts, I've gone from ones where, I really didn't weigh myself, or I'd weigh myself very occasionally, not really too worried about it, and didn't keep track of it very much, just sort of seeing a downward trend. But primarily, I was looking at, like, how are my clothes fitting? I'm going to lose weight and not be too obsessed about the numbers. That's the way I've done it before. The last sort of major weight loss, and again, at the earlier videos I talked about this, was about a decade ago, 2009 through 2011. I really watched what I ate. I worked out quite a lot, like really kind of heavy workouts, and I got my weight down from sort of a similar starting point. So I'm almost a cliche in that way of lost a lot of weight and gained it all back. So that's the thing here, right? The losing the weight loss journey is part of the battle. It's reprogramming this so that we do the maintenance side of things, right? It's really the work begins at the point where you can look in the mirror and feel good and step on the scale and be like, I'm right on target. That's where I should be. And go to the doctor and be like, hey, my blood pressure is doing great. My blood sugar is under control, and all of those sort of wonderful things. And then to not be in overweight person mode and go, well, that means I can go to a buffet. Or I don't need to, work out so dang hard anymore. And the next thing you know, you're not working out at all, and you've got Domino's on speed dial, right? Spending too many time making laps through the fast food lanes. So this morning the 238.4 again represents a good 3-pound drop. What did I do a little bit differently this week? Well, I got to tell you something. So this is actually a little, again, some happy counterintuitive. I have to admit, not that I was ever trying to do anything unhealthy. I think it's just so. Noom, one thing to understand about it is it's not precisely a diet program, other than that they, you do have the ability in the app to log your calories, but how you go about that is very much up to you. And it's one of the things that I kind of appreciate about Noom is there is a bit of you're in control. It's really trying to empower you. There's, again, it's more. The strength of it is more that it's providing you, it's taking you through these what they call mini courses. It's every day you're reading stuff, you're answering, taking little quizzes and whatever. But it's all about building a psychological, changing a psychological relationship not only with food, but with sort of building up your strategies, building up your the way you filter your thinking, those sorts of things, right? And also about not being overly judgmental. You cannot have an all or nothing, and understanding that food is a weird addiction, almost like none, right? Because if you're somebody that has a problem eating too much, as opposed to a lot of other things that people get addicted to, you'd say like they need to eliminate that from their life. You can't do that with food. You do in fact need to eat, right? Bad things happen at a certain point. You end up in a box. That is not where you want to go. We have to eat, right? You don't have to, do a lot of illicit drugs. You can have an all or nothing attitude about alcohol and about drugs and about, other things that you don't have to spend all of your rent money gambling. You don't have to ever make a bet. Right, if you have those kind of addictions, but if you're somebody that struggles with eating too much, we do have to eat, so you have to figure out how to do it in a healthy way, and that takes a good amount of change. So it's not that Noom prescribes what I'm supposed to eat from meal to meal. As a matter of fact, they give you, sort of a different range. It's, when you log. The only thing that I would say that comes close to being sort of a dietary recommendation on Noom's part is they categorize, and I've described that their database for the food when you log it is pretty robust, and everything falls according to their nutritionists who have helped them design this, into like 3 categories of food. So you've got like a red category, which are the most calorie dense. The yellow category is, sort of, things that are less than these guys. And then what they have, the green is very non-calorie dense, and it's exactly all the stuff that you'd think would fall, lettuce and, things that are vegetables and, things that have a very low calorie density, and you can practically, I'm sure without being a super crazy extremist, you can practically eat all that you want to of the green category. You kind of need to watch yourself in the yellow category. Just, you can eat, you're going to eat mostly greens and yellow category things to lose weight. And then, but nothing is off limits, right? They say, look, you're going to need to be able to figure out how to not be a poison pill, take care of yourself both psychologically as well as physically. And so, go to a birthday party, have a piece of cake, but you're building that into your week, and you got to be able to, have one piece of cake and one reasonably sized piece of cake, those sorts of things. You're not going to never eat pizza again or pasta again. Those things, yes, they're calorie dense and, they're delicious and da 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 da, but you've got to be able to figure out, how do I eat only so much of it and in a decent portion and not beat yourself up about it, go, I'm just so terrible, I just might as well just, no. You've got to, you can say, look, no, I built this in. This is my calorie budget for the day. I ate lighter in these other areas. Or today is going to be a day where I eat a little bit more. Tomorrow, I'm going to bring it back down. You've got to have a healthy approach to things. And that, I think, that is a strength that Noom brings to it. So what I was going to say about, so what did I do a little bit differently this week? It's sort of the counterintuitive, is that I think that while, so part of what I've been doing for myself, because I like to have substantive meals, is I've also embraced, and Noom, I just have gone through a portion here where the daily, the daily courses, that, if you will, have been examining different eating styles, right? From veganism to keto to paleo to Mediterranean diet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they talked about something that's gained a lot of traction in recent years, and that is intermittent fasting. And it's actually something that I've been doing, again, not part of the Noom program. Noom actually is very much about getting, 3 meals. They, make friends with breakfast. And I've been a big breakfast eater. It's not that I'm somebody who likes to skip breakfast. But for me, just the way, for me, I like to have a substantive meal. It's much harder for me to break a, limited, reduced calorie budget into 3 meals and feel like I ate a meal, so... it's just easier for me. And then some of the research seems to suggest, and again, do your own research. I am not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not making recommendations for anybody. Please, in anything that I say, do your own research about it. I'm just saying I've read some research that suggests that intermittent fasting as a way of managing calories and weight control can have benefits for type 2 diabetics in terms of the blood sugar, right? And then and essentially what I've, there are different modes of doing it. I don't want to do the ones where you don't eat like anything or barely anything in a day, and then other days you eat anything you want. I think that's, for me, consistency is key, is a thing that works. And I find actually that now that I've been doing this period of time, I'm not really missing breakfast. So what I've been doing is what they call the 16-8, and that's simply you've got 24 hours in the day, 16 hours of the day you don't eat, and you got 8 hours when you're in bed. So it's really essentially sort of saying my first 4 hours of my day. If you sleep 8 hours, you literally need to just say, I'm not going to eat anything the first 4 hours of the day and my last 4 hours of my day. And then you've got an 8-hour window in the middle there where you consume all of your calories. So for me, I make that noon through 8 at night, roughly speaking, right? Pretty much, so I eat lunch, a good sized lunch. Depending on how good size that lunch is, I may or may not have some type of a snack like grapes or a banana or something sort of midday-ish in that window, which falls in the 3 o'clock, 3:30 area, right? I may have something, and then we have dinner, of course. And I might cap my night with a little piece. Again, if you look at, there's a lot of research to suggest there's a lot of good health benefits in dark chocolate, so sometimes I'll have a couple of little pieces of dark chocolate as kind of a dessert or a late night snack, if you will, and again has some certain benefits for people that have the sorts of health conditions that I've got, and it's, dark chocolate, it's pretty yummy. So the previous week when I had struggled, I think I had gotten a bit into a mode where I was, for sure, and as I've said in previous videos, I've not really gone over my calories a whole lot. A handful of days have I really gone over my calorie budget. Many more times I've been under, and I probably got a bit too much into a mode of eating like significantly under that it probably put my body into too much of a starvation mode, which sort of, so actually this last week I was trying to do better. Didn't go over my calorie budget, but again, Noom gives you a range of this is the good area, right? Depending on your weight loss goals, it'll determine all of that for you. What your starting weight is, what your caloric needs are, and how quickly you're looking to lose weight. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm right in that box, that good box. And I did a better job of that this last week, and I think the results show that it helped me break through the little bit of plateau that I was having. And again, we're down into the 230s, and that that feels good. And that is we're creeping up on the half-hour mark. I really didn't think this one was going to go that long, but I felt like I had some good things hopefully there to say. I like to be as hopefully you found it entertaining and edifying, and again, I'm hopefully if you're out there and are looking to do any kind of personal makeover, you're looking for, you're doing self-improvement in any case, or if you're specifically doing weight loss, as I am, again, I'm doing, I'm getting my financial life in order, my mental, getting my head straight in a lot of different areas. I mean, not that I was, wheels off before. I just, I feel like what I'm trying to do is reach my own really take charge of my personal growth and reach my own levels of excellence. And I invite you to continue to come along with me on that journey. Do it for yourself, or use me as a piece of inspiration. If you just want to come watch through these videos, and hopefully you'll find some good nuggets in there. Wonderful. I invite you along. I hope to continue to connect with you, and we'll talk to you again in the very near future. We'll see you next week. I will log in, of course, give you the update. If I've got more good lessons and takeaways for next week, then we'll hopefully. But if not, then it'll just be a weigh-in. You never know from these things. And again, I know I realize I kind of ramble at the mouth, but again, I'm giving it to you straight from me, raw, uncensored, Russ. So thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. And until next week, you have a great week.